Okay, 6.4, our objective for today is going to be students will be able to identify specific physical, cognitive, and social development of later adulthood. So some interesting aspects of physical development. Our physical development peak is in our 20s. This is when we are is physically strong for most people. And we start to decline in our mid 40s. Now that does not mean that somebody in their 40s cannot still be very strong or in great physical health. It just means that it may take a little bit longer. You have to work a little bit harder for it. For reproduction for women, it declines between 35 and 40, and then it stops at menopause. Men can typically reproduce for as long as they want, technically. However, there is a slow decline of your sperm count as you age. Life expectancy. Women tend to outlive men by about 5 to 6 years. Sensory development. As we age, your pupils will start to shrink and your lenses become less transparent, so it makes it harder for you to see. This may be why some people as they age need glasses. And your muscle strength begins to decrease. So if you are ever watching YouTube, I do highly recommend searching the Stephen Colbert, Ruth Ginsburg workout video. It is pretty entertaining and amazing. But anyway, so something to know about health as you age. Well, one positive is you are less likely to get short-term illnesses. So you don't maybe get the cold or a stomach bug as frequently because you've had time to build up your immune system. And so it makes sense the older you are, the more colds that you've been exposed to throughout your life, meaning that you have an immune system that can handle them. And so you don't get as many short-term illnesses as long as you've never had a disease that has compromised your immune system. However, at the same time, your disease-fighting immune system weakens, meaning that you're more susceptible to get things like pneumonia, right? Or a little bit more of an aggressive disease. This is why they say for people 65 and older, it's so essential for you to get your flu shot, is because that you are more susceptible to that. Even though you may not get a common cold, you're more likely to get the flu. The aging brain, we've talked about this before, but your neural processes in the brain slow. So this is why you may have a lot of crystallized intelligence, but your fluid intelligence, so we'll write fluid, is going to slow down a little bit. And then, this is really fascinating to me, you have atrophy, which means a decay of the inhibition controlling frontal lobes. This is why grandma may say some really funny things. So when it comes to the frontal lobe, your brain and someone who may be 65 and older may have similar looking frontal lobes, because as you age, that part of your frontal lobe that you guys have not developed yet is the first part of your brain to start to atrophy or to start to not be as active as you age. So very interesting when you think about the frontal lobes of teenagers and older adults. And then physical exercise, we know that physical exercise is extremely important at any age. So some of the benefits is that it's going to stimulate brain development and also promotes neurogenesis, meaning that the continued generation and creation of those neurons. We want to keep those synapses growing, and we have found that physical exercise can continue to help do that. Dementia is where we have a mental erosion due to aging or a brain tumor, strokes, and alcohol dependence. So dementia is a symptom of Alzheimer's disease, okay? But dementia can mean a variety of different things. Dementia can be caused by a stroke. Dementia can be caused by drinking too much alcohol. Those are all things that can cause dementia. So Alzheimer's disease is an actual disease, where dementia is a symptom of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease affects 3% of the population, and it creates a loss of brain cells, and it's due to the loss of acetylcholine. You are going to need to know this. It pops up all the time. So make sure that you are aware that acetylcholine is related to Alzheimer's disease. Think AA. Prevention, we know staying physically active helps regenerate the neurons, and mentally active, reading helps. But as we saw in that one video, there's other things that you can do if you know that Alzheimer's disease runs in your family, and being prepared for that. Okay, so memory and aging. We know that recall will decrease. So it may be harder to recall information. However, recognition stays the same. We know that prospective memory the remember to part of your brain stays strong. However, again, this concept of being time-based tasks decrease. So you may not do as well on those timed multiplication tables. Aging and intelligence. This is pretty interesting. They did a cross-sectional study. So it was called phase 1. So you know cross-sectional, you take people from different age groups and study them all at the same time. And what we found is that there was an intellectual decrease across the age groups. So then they did a phase 2 test. And this was longitudinal. And this showed us that there was intellectual stability as you aged. So really, more research needs to be done. And probably more focus on longitudinal studies, as they're probably a little bit more accurate in this phase, because it's hard to, with a cross-sectional study, to ensure that you're getting people that were at the same intellectual level if they're already aged. So, very interesting study. Again, we know this, but just to reiterate, crystallized intelligence is accumulated knowledge that's going to increase as you age. Fluid intelligence is speed, and we know that's going to decrease as you age. Okay, social development is the social clock, is the socially acceptable timing of events. So when is it socially acceptable to get married? And we see that change from country to country, right? Or from culture to culture, really, a better way to say that. So it definitely begins on, or depends on your society. But when is it acceptable time to move out of your parents' house? Well, that may depend on the cost of living in your area. Or when is it a socially acceptable time to have children? Those sorts of things. Love. Fascinating. There's a higher rate of divorce amongst couples who live together before they are engaged. Before engagement. Well-being. Older Americans who are 65 and older tend to be happier with life than other age groups. Death and dying. There was originally this theory that we went through phases of death and dying. And what we've now discovered is that we do not go through identical stages. When it is expected, it might be easier than unexpected. So if someone has been sick or elderly, we tend to see death and dying as quote unquote easier. And when I say easier, I just mean easier to handle than if it's unexpected. Unexpected tends to be more difficult to cope. And that is it for today.